Hey everyone, today I'm going to be showing you Wheeler's delayed choice experiment. A few videos ago I did an experiment in which I set up a time traveler's party. And at the end of that video I mentioned a little bit about how time travel is actually possible in quantum mechanics. And I didn't say much else about it. This is just a regular green laser pointer. And in the center here I have a beam splitter. What a beam splitter does is it has a 50-50 chance of letting a photon either go through it or be reflected. So that means that half of the light is going to go through it and half of the light is going to be reflected. And then I have a mirror right here and right here. These are just gauge blocks at the bottom to keep everything parallel. So if it takes this path, it can pass through the beam splitter, hit this mirror, and then be reflected off the beam splitter to hit this lens at the back here. But if it takes this path, it can get reflected off the beam splitter, hit this mirror, go through the beam splitter, and then end up at this lens as well. So at the end, we're actually combining both beams together. A simplified diagram of it looks like this. So you can see we have the red path and the blue path. The beam splitters are shown in green here, and the mirrors are the gray boxes. What I can do is I can actually move this beam splitter and slide it down so that it doesn't recombine back at this spot and just has two different paths that go off in either direction. You can see the actual paths of the laser here when I put some smoke on it. Now that we understand the setup, let me show you why this is interesting. We know that light can act like it's made of waves. So when I have the second beam splitter there, the light from each beam combines so that it can actually constructively and destructively interfere with each other. So that when I shine the light on the backstop here, we can actually see the interference pattern. When I block one of the mirrors, you can see that the interference pattern disappears. But if I remove the second beam splitter by sliding it out of the way, then we just have two beams of light, and we can actually stick a particle detector right here. Whenever the light hits the particle detector, it only becomes whole pieces of light, or photons as we call them. There's never a half a photon that hits the particle detector. So we know that whenever we see the light with a particle detector, it always comes in discrete little packets that we call photons. In fact, we can stick the detector anywhere in the path of the light, and we always show that it is whole photons that hit the detector. There's no indication that these photons are being split up or traveling in both paths. But we also know that light acts like a wave when we have the second beam splitter there. So let's try to reconcile this difference by shooting only one photon through at a time. This is actually possible with specialized lasers. If we shoot only one at a time, then that means the two photons can't possibly be interfering with each other, and we can try to track where each individual photon is going. So if we shoot through only one photon at a time, the odd thing is that they still accumulate on the backstop and show an interference pattern. So that means that the photons must have been traveling as waves that split up and went both directions, and then those waves recombined at the second beam splitter to make an interference pattern. But if I remove this second beam splitter, then the wave pattern disappears and I only measure individual discrete photons. And the only way these photons that hit this spot could reach this point is if they had traveled the entire distance as a whole photon, because if they went the other direction, they wouldn't end up at this point. So it's as if the photons have to decide whether to travel as a wave or a particle based on if this second beam splitter's here or not. If it's here, then the photons traveled as waves the whole time, but if I remove it, then they traveled as particles the whole time. So I guess we can accept that, but now let's get a little bit tricky. Let's say that we have the two beam splitters in place so that each individual photon is traveling as a wave that gets split up at the first beam splitter. But then mid-flight we remove the second beam splitter. What will we detect at these 2 points? Well, we always find an individual whole photon. But that means that the photon was a wave, and then suddenly, as soon as we removed the beam splitter, it had to retroactively go back in time and actually become a whole particle that was never split up. So by removing the second beam splitter, we're causing the photon to have to retroactively choose whether or not to be a wave or a particle at the beginning of the journey. Now, if we don't believe that the photon can go back in time and choose to act as a wave or a particle, a different interpretation is that the photon always travels as a wave, but as soon as you try to measure where the photon is, it suddenly collapses into a particle. This is the most popular interpretation, and it's the way that we currently describe quantum effects most of the time. And before we end, I'd like to thank Exter for sponsoring this video. Exter makes really cool minimalist wallets that are super classy and elegant looking, but also really cool. They have this really cool mechanism in them that fans out your cards so you can see them all when you push this button here. They can hold up to 15 cards. And then it has these places that you can hold cash as well. Their wallets are really secure and offer RFID protection. They're made from really nice looking leather and have many different options to choose from, different colors and styles. They also sell a bunch of other cool accessories like laptop cases and phone cases. Also, I'm always losing my wallet, so this is a really nice feature. This is a card-shaped tracker that can go in your wallet, and so you can track your wallet anytime you need and play a little sound on it. Really cool. There it is. Right now, you can get a really special deal on these wallets if you go to shop.extra.com/theactionlab or click the link in my description. So head there now to get your amazing Extra wallet. And thanks again for watching another episode of The Action Lab. I hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet and hit the bell so you can be notified when I release my latest video. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.